social. Can you hear an amen?
Amen.
So I want to say thank you to the conversation. Thank you for the leadership of Tammy and everyone here to actually make something like this happen. And love you very much. And if I did meet you, lovely to meet you. If I haven't met you, lovely to meet you to be. And I'll give you a hug or a fist bump or anything you want. Pre-COVID, I was actually known as the hugging machine. I actually am quite famous down in Southeast Asia. And there was this viral shirt going on, hugging machine. And it was Nick Vujicic. And they just knew me as the hugging machine because I would just hug everyone that I knew. And the danger of that is they would just pick me up and take me home. And so I've been able to actually hug 500,000 people around the world. And I've had the privilege of having 3,500 keynotes in 74 countries and being able to be with 21 presidents and vice presidents and be able to address 10 different national governments in what we do. And we are, if you will, multifaceted in how we try and bring the one thing, which is what every human being needs, hope. And I love this hashtag of world changer, because we must understand that no matter who we are, that we are human, and no matter what we succeed in, there are parts of our life that still don't satisfy us to the fulfillment that we know we are longing for deep down. And I just want to encourage you transparently, I'm not here to give you the 5 ways in how to never go down and the 5 ways how to never be depressed and the 5 ways to never have anxiety and fear. It's actually, I'm going to give you the 5 keys of getting through crap in your life, especially when curveballs like 2020 come. And I just want to be transparent with you. I had a really difficult 2020. And I hope to inspire you tonight in understanding that these distractions should never destroy our dreams. And at the same time, to know that sometimes you may have to let a dream die, but don't let that kill you. So we're going to be talking about how as world changes, how we have that perception of challenges, because as you can see, I've had to deal with a lot of challenges, and I've been forced to reframe obstacles into opportunities. I've been forced to reframe challenges as a positive thing, to make you stronger, to become more resilient, and to be more thankful for what you have. But before we get into it, I don't know, has anyone, with a show of hands, has anyone seen me on YouTube somewhere? Okay, cool, look at the hand, okay, cool. So just so you understand, 1 billion people outside of China know who I am, and 1 billion people inside of China. So 2 billion people so far know something about a limbless man who tries to inspire people to never give up. And I am so blessed to have met Tammy back in 2010. And then me and my wife, we fell in love in McKinney, actually Texas here. And her family all lives out here. And she lived in Dallas, Fort Worth area before we got married. And when we got married, we went back to California, which is where I was residing for the last 15 years. And we just moved here 13 weeks ago. So we're so thankful to be a local, and so thank you for the welcome. I'm excited to be here. And anyway, but first of all, a little bit of background. Would not be here without my parents, not just a biological, scientific reason, but the bottom line is the way that they raised me. And the way that they raised me is very different than kind of what we've been seeing in the last couple of years with I would say technology allowing the generations having this expectancy of on-demand anything. Give me what I want, when I want it, how I want it now. My parents never gave me what I wanted, when I wanted it, and how I wanted it. In fact, when I went to the store, when I wanted something, they said, no, get it yourself. Get your own money. And I'm like, well, you're me. And my brother, he took out the trash for $2 a week, saved up his money. If he wanted something from the store, he'd save up his money and get it. I vacuumed the floor at 6 years old, and $2 a week. I started saving my money and getting what I wanted. It gave me dignity. It taught me goal setting. It gave me patience. It gave me a decision-making process of, okay, I saved up now $15. Is that what I really want to spend it on now? It also gave me an attitude of gratitude. It's amazing what your child can learn when you don't give them everything they want, when they want it, how they want it. And what was incredible was they did this intentional affirmation daily, verbal and non-verbal, to tell me and make me know that I was loved. Nick, we love you. Nick, we believe in you. When the doctors saw me, they had 3 ultrasounds done while my mother was pregnant. I imagine you want me to share my story a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what happened was my mom was actually a nurse, and they had 3 ultrasounds done. They missed the fact that I had no arms and no legs, so when I was born, I said, surprise. The doctor held me long enough, and no one knew I was born this way. At school, I would just say cigarettes when they asked me what happened. And my doctors were told, my doctors told my parents that I would never walk. Thank God that doctors are sometimes wrong. And I could walk with my little foot, and then jump, and then learn how to swim, golf, fish. I've done scuba diving, surfing. And a lot of people say, like, Nick, like, how do you have that? It's because I was forced to find out what was possible. And when you are forced to find out what's possible, you don't even hear the word impossible. It's like, hey, that's your opinion on what could be or could not be, but all I'm focusing in on is the possible. And trying again, and failing. And I actually was the first disabled student to go to school in Australia. My mom took me to the education system of Victoria, and I was trailblazing special needs integration into the mainstream school. And that was cool, and I learned how to write and type. I can now type 53 words a minute on a normal computer, and no one would ever know what this little boy would become. Neither did I. And that was scary sometimes, going out to school, getting bullied, getting teased, and sometimes not being able to be integrated into the school activities. I was stuck with my teacher, talking to me, and I'm realizing they're not here for fun. They're here because it's their job. Wait, mom and dad, they have a job. I'm not going to have a job. I'm just going to be a burden to my parents. My brother and sister have arms and legs. Wait a second, mom and dad got married. Am I ever going to get married? My friends had girlfriends, boyfriends. I'm not going to get a girlfriend, boyfriend. I can't hold my wife's hand. And at age 8, I started seeing my future. It didn't look so good. I can't hold my wife's hand. I can't hold my kids when they're crying. What kind of a life is that going to be? And I had this undergirding pressure by my dad to accelerate and excel in mathematics. It was something that he knew I could do well. And it was something that when I couldn't run track, that I could hold on to the confidence that I'm number 1 with math. So it's almost like I have a mathematical mind, and numbers just continue to go through my mind. I was a year ahead of everyone by middle school and high school. I did a double degree in accounting and financial planning. I went into options trading as a 16-year-old. I went into a real estate market as a 19-year-old. I learned financial literacy and investments at 17 years old. But I never thought I'd be a speaker. I never saw myself as a world changer. I thought deep down maybe I'll help one person if I can. But I didn't think I'd be a world changer because I was fixated on the idea that I needed to get a miracle to be a miracle. And I never thought that it could be possible in any other way. And out of all the people in my life, the janitor who was cleaning the toilets at my school when I was 17 years old stopped and looked at me and he said, "You're going to be a speaker." I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "You're going to go around the world and you're going to speak." I said, "You're crazy." Biggest fear in the world, public speaking. I'm like, "No way, thank you very much." He said, "You have a story." I said, "I don't have a story. You're crazy." And I walked away. Next day, he says, "Hey, Nick!" I'm like, "No!" He said, "Let me arrange it." I'm like, "No way, man." 3 months. I said, "No." He twisted my arm. And I said, "Yes." Found myself in front of 6 students. And my palms were sweating, my knees were shaking. And within 5 minutes, the girls were crying. And I'm looking her in the eye. You know the eyes are the windows to your soul. And you can tell when someone found hope. You can tell when someone received love. You can tell when someone heard finally what they know deep, deep, deep down they've been really wanting to hear. and the stranger told them exactly what they needed to hear. And I'm like, wow, here I am speaking just from my heart. If I could help somebody with my story, that's amazing. Now I have faith in God, and I believe that my history is His story, and He's got the pen and He's writing my story. And it's incredible how beautiful things can come from broken pieces if you give your broken pieces a chance. And I've spoken in front of Buddhists, Muslims, all types of people, all around the world, and I love everyone. What's beautiful is we're looking for the same thing. We're looking for hope. And if you want to know more about my faith and my hope, you'll find that out on the internet. But here, I just want to help you to understand that you're a world changer. We all have our gifts and talents. We all have our different beliefs. We all have our differences, but we have one thing in common. We know that the world needs world changers like never before. Depression has spiked. I'm getting phone calls from 2 different governments this week saying, can you help us? It's been pretty crazy of a year. But for me, what was amazing was that at 17, I'm looking back at my own life and that arc of depression that I had as a child. At age 8, I was depressed. At age 10, I attempted suicide. I tried to drown myself in my bathtub, believing that there was nothing more for me. And I'm just so glad I'm still here. So how do we get out of depression? How do we get out of traumatic crises? We all have had them. That would be my first crisis, age 8 to 12. My second crisis was age 19, when I lost $40,000. $40,000 to a 19-year-old is a lot of money. Then the next crisis I had was at 21 years old, when there was someone that I met in 2002. I fell in love with her, she fell in love with me. I waited for her for 4.5 years. And we dated for 18 months, and we found out that I wasn't good enough for a family. That was a crisis. That was a depression. There was fear, anxiety. It sucked. And then the next time was 2011, where in 2011, January, I was a very viciously hungering entrepreneur. And I had the cash to do 6 projects at the same time. And I was desperate at that time to break through off this treadmill of just going and speaking, going and speaking, going and speaking, going and speaking. I wanted to start businesses. I've clocked 2,500 plane rides, 3 million miles around the world. To go around the world once is 24,000 miles. I've done 3 million. I've gone around the world 120 times. I never met somebody who's gone to China as much as you, Michael. 120 times. I've done 37. I thought that was pretty big. They say, though, that I run so fast I leave my legs behind. And I was running too fast, and I wanted legs, and I wanted a life. And unfortunately, revenue was slower or non-existent. Someone stole 50 grand from me. And then at the same time, costs were double and everything took triple the time. So now my rule of thumb, if you want to do a new project, you got to be ready for a triple timeline, half the revenue, and double the cost. And if that's the truth and it's still worth it, then go ahead and do it. But for me in my life, I wanted a different life because I finally met the love of my life. And the fact that I met it was love at first sight. I looked at her, she looked at me, I couldn't feel my legs. And in January 2011, when we were dating, what I love about her, she said, after I told her that I lost all my money, she said, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'll get a nursing job and support the both of us. And that's when I knew, wow, she's gonna be the wife, my wife, for life. But I don't have to hold her hand, I just need to hold her heart. And my kids, when they cry, we have 4 children now. A son who's 7, a son who's 5, and our twin identical girls who are 3 this December. And when they cry, they know that daddy can't hug them, but they hug daddy. And I tell you, if I had fingers, I'd pinch myself. Because arms and legs don't give you happiness. Arms and legs just later on give you pain, right? Arthritis, right? They get in the way, right? I mean, if I drink too much, I can even just get carried out of here if I want. I'm joking. No drinking and driving tonight, Tammy, all right? But the bottom line for me is that arms and legs, money, drugs, sex, alcohol, pornography, fame, and fortune, if you put your happiness in temporary things, your happiness will be temporary. And there are a lot of things about 2020 that I hate. And I'm not belittling the pain and any loss. I lost an aunt 3 weeks ago, and I believe that COVID-19 is the flu. And I don't want to tell you what else I think, but I'll tell you this, that in this 2020, I've had a reset that was quite of a rude awakening. And some things have gone to zero. In fact, I think October will be the first month that my for-profit company doesn't lose money. So we've been losing money for 8 months straight, went through a wild year with a relocation, but I'm happy. About 6 weeks ago, my creative juices came back, my entrepreneurial courage came back, because some things that we were working on finally are taking some momentum. It's taking slower, it's smaller, much smaller, but it doesn't matter. What I love about moving forward is that I'm never going to travel away from my family like I used to. I'm never going to do some of the things that I thought was okay, ever again. And what's really cool about the conversation, and even the name of that, is not just the conversation that you have, it's the conversation that you have within yourself. And even when you talk to people, kind of what really speaks to you out of your own mouth. And so give me a second. Tonight's topic is all about understanding what's distracting you that doesn't destroy your dream. And for me, the dream's been the same. I'm a world changer. Number one in faith. I know who I am in my faith, in my category of faith, to know that my God-given gifts, my God-given calls will still be accomplished. And I'd rather be someone in a fraction of the size of a home with my wife, with my family, knowing where I'm going when I die, than being in a massive home and still feeling like, well, what happens after all of this anyway? I want that peace in my soul. I want that peace in my spirit. And instead of hanging your hat on how much money I can bring home, when we're talking about family, my wife doesn't love me more because I can bring more money. We think that, we perceive that, and on the subconscious, we actually give ourselves more of an identity or value, but that is so wrong. How can I be more valuable than someone who's homeless? How can I be more valuable than an orphan in Africa? But at the same time, how can I be less valuable than any political person out there? We all have influence. We all are world changers, and we all are irreplaceable. There is not another you, there is not another me. And that's the beauty of value. If it's something beautiful and it's the only one, you pay a lot of money for pieces of art. We're not talking about art that hangs on walls. We're talking about souls, spirit, minds, and beings on a physical level, where we have around 90 years to make the world a better place, make it better than when we came into it. And so for me, one of those things that helped me not to be distracted is to, number one, I'm going to give you these 5 points that I actually had to do myself. First of all, transparently, in January, because I have friends in 43 countries, on the 3rd week of January, and I watched the world news, I emailed all my inner circle and I said, buy masks now. Stock up on your fridge and get food ready and get out of the stock market. 3rd week of January, I got that in writing. And then March finally hit the shores of America, and I was right. It's only because I knew what was happening in the world and no one was saying it on the media yet. And so when you really have pulses on the ground and you try to get ahead and you try to help people survive, that's cool, but man, it doesn't matter that you saw it coming. It's the deterioration of our courage. It's a deterioration and the pause that happens when we're hijacked of emotions. When my parents saw me, when I went through crisis, we all have emotions. And step one of getting through any crisis is embracing and accepting and dealing through your emotions. But the first thing of embracing and accepting what you feel, you can't oppress it, you can't ignore it, and you have to face it. Anyone who's going through crisis to its fullest potential, when they do come back, are the people who've dealt with their emotions. There are some of us who have dealt through our emotions. And when March came, even though I saw it coming, I was actually anxious and my brain went numb for 4 weeks. 2 weeks, I went through panic. So 6 weeks, I didn't talk. I internalized things. I knew I wasn't alone. My wife knew that I was in a crisis. And we were moving, house, family, selling a house during COVID in California. It's ridiculous. And so we moved, it was all of that. And when I started talking, I actually didn't hear my voice, my own voice, for 6 weeks. That when I started talking again, I noticed my accent. I'm like, you still sound Australian.
Yeah.
And so I started talking again. And I am so thankful that when you go through emotions, one of the things that I had to do was face my emotions. And I knew that in desperation, you kind of need help, right? But when you need help, you kind of feel like, well, who's going to help me anyway? Even if they knew what I was going through, why would my first cousin or my third cousin or my neighbor or my friend actually even know what to say, because they're going through the same thing too? But then I feel this undergirding need as this speaker to be able to have some answers for someone who might also be desperately needing information, needing encouragement, when I can't give out of what I don't have. So I crossed that fear, faced my emotions, and picked up the phone and started calling my friends. And I tell you, as a visionary who's been hiring and firing since age 26, and I've traveled around the world, started at age 19 years old, I think one of the greatest gifts, I think I've tapped back into the 3 or 4 greatest gifts of human beings that we have being given, is friendship. And just talking to people. Sometimes you could talk to them about politics or COVID or this and that. Sometimes you just want to know what was the new thing that your kid did this week that he couldn't do last week, and what's the conversations going on. And it was amazing. So I had to go through my emotions. I had to face what I faced and deal with those emotions. Some of my friends are professional counselors, and I called a couple of them. I asked people to pray for me when I couldn't pray for myself. Spiritually, also know that there's a practice that I also do in the spiritual that helps me a lot, which is fasting as well. That helped me a lot, just to get rid of all the distraction and not be hijacked, and don't watch the freaking news for so long. And so I watched what was going into my head. You could hold thoughts that were captive, take it out, put back something positive, right? We all know that, that's all universal, but putting that into practice is something else. So you had to deal with those emotions. So number one, embrace what you have, face it, get counseling where you can, but also talk to friends, just who you can be yourself with, just once a week. That helped me a lot. Number 2, the attitude of gratitude. 2020 sucked so much that I've never had to do this in my life. Not only in the attitude of gratitude was I thankful for the fact that I had parents who went through what they've been through to be who they are, to raise me the way that they did. I'm not only thankful for my spiritual foundation, I'm not just thankful for hope after death, I'm not just thankful for my wife and my 4 kids, and thankful that I didn't lose, the company sank, but I've still got a house over our head, and we have enough for where we're at 37 years old. We are totally blessed. But what I realized was, it hurt so bad that I needed to remind myself of not only what I had, but what was bad that could have gone even worse. Think about that. Not just what you have, not just what you've been through, but what happened in the last 6 to 9 months that was so freaking bad that could have gone worse. Here's an example, 2017. My dad died of cancer. What could have gone worse? That my brother was not in America, so as a family we were all together to walk my dad through cancer for 21 months. I nearly died in 2016, a year before my dad died. That was really bad. What could have gone even worse? That I died. I mean, for real. I am so thankful for some things that could have gone even worse, and we've got to count our blessings, not just what you have, but when it sucks, go back to what could have gone even worse. Does that make sense? Talk about recalibration and like getting rid of all those monkeys of the, the emotions that hijack you. Let's get real. Let's get real. Can anyone guarantee me my safety as I drive my car home? No. Thank God Feather's driving and not me. But you know what I mean. So every moment, every conversation is then the opportunity to be that world changer. Does that make sense? Number 3, don't be worried about letting go. I think some of us visionaries and entrepreneurs, or whoever we are, whatever goals we have, we're so married to the success of the last 10 to 20 years that it's so hard to reimagine that green is yellow and yellow is green, or that pink is blue and blue is green in our heads. It's so hard for us to understand that I've known this my whole life, speaking, going on the circuit, speaking to presidents, and now went to 0, not knowing if it'll ever come back. Crazy. For me in my life to reimagine all that, that was very, very difficult. But what I've realized is letting go of what used to work and reimagine what actually could be in your entrepreneurial context. What we must understand is that we as a people need to evolve as much as we can, do what we can, but also in the business sense, where there are a lot of billion-dollar companies that were actually birthed in the last global crisis, economic crisis between 2008 and 2012. The entrepreneurs that will birth the multi-billion-dollar companies from 2020 to 2025 are those who didn't even use the word pivot. And they said reset, or brand new company. Let that boat sink. Let's stay in a life raft and let's order a boat, and let's build a boat while we're in the water, and let's go. Let's not build a boat, let's build a seaplane. That's the reimagining. Going from cruising to flying. Build a seaplane when all you knew were boats. Does that make sense? So that's the way you got to reframe things. Obstacles equals opportunity. So letting go of the past, letting go of all of that is so, so key. That's point number 3. Point number 4 is resetting real goals and helping you not to be distracted by emotions. You need to deliberately remind yourself of your short-term, mid-term, but especially your long-term goals. So when I was going through hell as a 15-year-old, my parents were refugees, okay, before they met. They were very, very poor. They taught us to help orphans. And so I put an African orphan out of, I don't know, some magazine that I found, and I put it on my mirror. And I thought to myself, no matter what hell I need to go through today, today is another day closer to helping that one orphan. And if I can make the world a better place by only helping one person, then that is everything. For you, that might be different. For me, it was everything, because I needed a sense of purpose. I think one of the biggest things that the devastation of a visionary entrepreneurship is actually the hijacking of emotions to the point where it actually touches your dignity. And the true, raw, naked dignity of a human being, the way that we've been created, is for purpose. That is why so many motivational speakers always tie into when you're getting out of that, yuck. Don't get stuck in that yuck. And one of the things is to actually go and serve. Because when you instigate intentional purposeness in action, in word, and in deed, it actually subconsciously and consciously tells all those hijacked emotional vocals going on in your mind, you're an idiot, you're a failure, you'll never get there, no one cares for you, and you've got everything and you still feel alone. No, wait, I just helped that person. No, I just helped that person. The sense of purposeness is something that needs to be put in your research long-term vertical. Somehow. And the short-term. And the mid-term. Try figure that out. It takes sometimes a lifetime to try to figure it out, but put those photos there. Put those visuals there. Reset your goals and keep them in mind. That's number 4. And number 5, dream crazy big. It's so hard that when you can't even motivate yourself to peel yourself off that floor, dream big. And in that dreaming, with the short term and the mid-term and the long term, when you do dream big, give yourself time. Some of us need time. Some of us are still depressed. Some of us are still stuck in the yuck. Some of us still are waiting for something to happen to get new direction. Trust me, I know how that all feels. I was like a thoroughbred being taken off the racetrack, being put in a trailer, kicking, and seeing the racetracks go by and not knowing which new racetrack I would ever go on again. I had no idea what would happen. And now, so first of all, my non-profit organization, we haven't been touched. We're actually been in the surplus for the last 3 months financially. Our long-term 10-year-old goals through our non-profit have been fast-tracked to 5 years because we're not being distracted by what we thought we needed to do before we got to the 10-year goals. Does that make sense? For-profit went to 0. Absolutely. But that's okay, because now what we're building is a massive, massive machine. And a machine that will implement my passion, my dream to be a world changer without ever having to go on another airplane. Because my greatest dreams is to be with my family, to teach my son entrepreneurship, my second son, my third daughter, my fourth daughter. And what's the other one? Finance. I'm back into the stock market 6 weeks ago. Passion of mine that I stopped at 22. And I'll be doing real estate development here in Dallas because you can buy a lot more out here in Dallas than Los Angeles. And I'm learning from the people who've gone before me. And I'm currently writing 4 books, doing co-authors right now. When the crap hit the fan, I'm like, man, I'm just gonna get another book deal. Couldn't get one. Couldn't get one. I've sold 3 million books and I couldn't get a book deal. It was amazing, so humbling. But it forced me to do things differently. All these Zoom calls and virtual reality, let me tell you, I today can look you in the eye and say 2020 was so hard. So hard. But I feel like I'm 19 years old again. I'm back so much stronger, more humble, more wise, focused, and I realized what was distracting me from my dreams. It was me. I told my wife crying, I said, I'm so glad I stopped. Because I look at my son who's 7, and I say, wow, he's not 17. I didn't miss it. some of us would do life over again a little bit differently, for sure. In hindsight, we all have regrets. But seize the now. Seize the here. Seize the local community and how you can make a world impact and the world around us. Don't just believe things because you're told something. And I'll tell you, the third world countries need us like never before. No one's talking about that, but I got friends everywhere. And even on my speech to the UN that I just did last week, they asked me, what's empathy? And why is it important to have empathy? And I don't even know if they're actually going to include it, because it was pre-recorded. They may cut me, but I'll tell you exactly what I said. Because I'm not afraid to get handcuffed. I had to, I'm sorry. I said, yeah, empathy is when you realize you're not the only person on the planet. And you actually have humility to understand that it's better to give than to receive. And to even acknowledge that sometimes even the UN makes blanket worldwide rules that don't make sense for everyone in the world. I said, I think empathy for everyone is really important. To know that everyone interprets things differently, everyone sees things differently, and the one fits all don't make sense to a lot of the world. So I don't know if they're going to keep that in. But the question is, what are we going to do? Not just say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to do differently in your finance? What are you going to do differently in your fitness? What are you going to do differently in your family? What are you going to do differently in your spiritual? I'm not asking you to explore all these things, but I want you to just have those conversations with yourself. Are you happy with that? And for anyone married or looking to be married or married again, I'll just give you a tip, which is actually a wonderful litmus test of a quadrant for all these quadrants, and I'll stop talking and we'll have Q&A. But me and my wife, we've only been married for 8 years, and we ask each other every 30 days 3 questions. Babe, what am I doing that you want me to stop doing? Number 2, what am I doing well that you want me to keep on doing? And number 3, what am I not doing yet that you want me to do? Can you imagine the multi-billion-dollar entrepreneurial mega companies in the world? They can only change about 2 or 3 things a year at a time. I know how it is to even have a company of just, I've only got 17 employees. You can't do 2 or 3 different major things, more than that. But imagine if you could actually address 3 things for your marriage, 3 things for your fitness, 3 things for your finances, and actually get to it. Get to it. Journal, whatever you need to do. Talk to someone, get counsel. Put something into practice that you actually learned in 2011, Nick, that you knew you learned back then, but you forgot the lesson, and you actually intentionally taking time to do an exercise in your mind to actually go back to the yuck that you were once stuck in, to actually glean some other nuggets out of that gold mine that you think you learned, but you only learned 3 things, but you actually learned 6 things. You know how we want to learn from other people's experiences? You actually haven't even tapped into double of the lessons of what you've had in the last decade. It's because of having the conversations, the reflection, the journaling, and itemizing it, and reminding yourself, putting that at the front of your mind in every day. With time management, prioritization, I'm able to be that entrepreneur now. After I put those 5 things in place, I've written down on my whiteboards, I'm actually doing 14 things at the same time. And I've always been the entrepreneur that I'm at least doing 5 things in the short term. 14 things over the next 5 to 7 years, for sure. I know I'm doing it. And I finally, after 2020, after so many people said, it's too much, you're doing too much, you're doing too much, that got distracting to me. And today I look you in the eye and say, I don't care if people think I'm doing too much, because I'm not. In my opinion, my wife has blessed me with what I'm doing, how many days a week I'm working, how many hours a day I'm working right now. It's a season. You gotta hustle. You gotta do what you can. Until you know what you can change and what you can't change, I ain't going to sleep. I sleep so well because I did everything I could to then figure out what I couldn't change. Man, that's a wonderful little piece of peace. So hustle, work hard, figure it out, try change what you can. But when you can't change something, then reset. And let's reset with what you know and not be scared about what you don't know. That's what courage is. Having all that, I'm just glad. Life is what you make it. And I'm glad that I'm here with you tonight, because I'll never forget tonight. This is only my 4th speech in 7 months, face to face. I used to clock a lot more. And I'm just so glad that I get to go home and be in my bed tonight and be with you. And I hope that some seeds of hope that I was trying to scatter here tonight goes into your heart, into your mind, into your spirit, and into your soul, and that it would take root. I love you all very much, and I hope that some of this is just being transparently raw to you. And I'm not just another speaker to tell you, oh yeah, it was okay, because I knew the 7 keys of success in 2019, no problem. Now we all go through that, but if we really authentically go through that, you become stronger on the other side. You become more sharp, and you get out of your own way when that rhythm and momentum come back. So thank you so much, just sharing from the heart. I hope that you in your own mind and your discussions here at the conversation can help you maybe even decipher some defined distractions that are stopping you from your dreams and going to the next level. God bless you all. Thank you so much.